Yeah, aged care is such a crucial issue, so make sure you tune in for our special reports next week. But right now, on today's agenda, it is time to talk about another very important issue. Losing a job can rock your confidence at the best of times, but for our next guest, it packed an extra punch. Kylie was preparing to return from maternity leave when she received this email. It read, "Dear Kylie, we are confirming your position is no longer required. We are making you redundant." Now, alarmingly, Kylie's not alone, so it's little wonder many women worry motherhood will ruin their career. I'm joined now by Rhonda Brighton-Hall from FlexCareers and Kylie Ossel from Mum Society. Good morning, welcome to you both. Kylie, I understand you were a couple of weeks prior to returning to work, or when you planned to return to work, when you got that email. Just explain how it felt.
It was just before Christmas. It was a few weeks before I was due to return. I was ready. I didn't enjoy the first year of being a mum. Maternity leave I found really difficult. It just didn't suit me. And I was really excited about returning to work and kind of jumped online, and there was an email detailing my redundancy, and it felt like a really big blow. I mean, I was no good at the whole baby thing, and you have no idea what you're doing. The one thing I did know is how to do my job, and that opportunity was taken away from me.
But, you know, if I could just say, even if you did love doing the baby thing, and even if you had really enjoyed being off with your baby, receiving an email like that would hurt just as much.
Oh, absolutely.
And from my understanding, it came from nowhere.
Yeah, there was no warning, and I think that was the most brutal part of the whole process. There was no human touch, there was no conversation, there was no phone call, there was nothing. So it was confidence shattering, to be completely honest.
Rhonda, research suggests, and there's been some recent research that you've done on this, that a story like Kylie's is not isolated.
It's epidemic. It's so common, and every time you hear a story, it still breaks your heart. So the stats from Human Rights Commission in 2016 were 50% of women were discriminated against on maternity leave or just before, and our research in 2017 was 65%. So these are huge numbers. 15% of people lose their jobs before they go on mat leave or as they go. It's just so common.
And what can you read into that? What sort of explanation are you getting from employers as to why they are doing it?
What you can see is that we had laws since 1984, so it's not new. It's not like we suddenly woke up, oh my goodness, the law's changed, I didn't keep up. It's actually been in place for the longest time. But what's happening is supervisors, managers aren't trained to manage flexible work. They're only trained to manage, if they're lucky, their team as it works. And so as soon as someone goes on mat leave, which is the easiest form of flexible work to manage because it's planned and organised and everything else, they just find it easier. And then a little bit of out of sight, out of mind comes into it. So they've got a person in front of them doing the job, the other person's not there. Oh, I'll just remove that person from my team and keep the person I've got in front of me.
But as you say, it is unlawful.
Yes, it absolutely is.
My understanding is that you are entitled to return to the exact same position that you left when you went on maternity leave.
Or a similar job.
Or a similar position.
As long as it's got the same status.
So how are they
money
getting away with it if it's against the law?
Well, what happens is exactly what Kylie just described. You either get a note like that, so it's an email or a letter. I could tell so many stories. So here's one. 8.5 months pregnant, woman's putting her coffee mug in a box. She's ready to go on mat leave. And they say to her, can you come into the office? She's done a handover. She's ready to go for 12 months, all planned. And they say, look, you've lost your job. She rings me and we have lunch. She's just full of tears because the damage is huge. And she said, this is how it looked. So for 2 weeks, she could feel that they were wanting to talk to her but not talking. Then they hand it to her, redundancy, and next to it a deed of release, or a hush agreement as we call them, which basically says here's a few extra weeks' pay if you don't talk about the redundancy.
What sort of recourse has she got?
Under Fair Work and the Human Rights Commission, she can go legal and she will probably win. But we're talking about hundreds, even thousands of women. So it's not up to one person to fight. And can you imagine, you've had children.
Well,
8.5 months pregnant.
Awful.
Let's get a lawyer.
Precisely. It's at a time of your life that should be the most joyful.
And you're so vulnerable.
Exactly. Vulnerable and so much going on, and you want to focus on your baby. It's just awful. We asked our viewers on Facebook, does having children potentially ruin your career? And here's what some of you have had to say. Loretta said, yes, it can set you back. Contrary to what's put out there, you can't have it all. Not everyone can work from home, have agreeable bosses or grandparents to help out. This from Tori, absolutely not. If your career is that important to you, then don't have kids. Simple, it's called work-life balance. If only it was that simple, but thank you. And Donna writes, I'd say no, but when I was going back to the workforce, I had on my resume that I have had a 6-year gap because I was home raising my kids and I had no luck. Then I removed anything to do with family life from my resume, and guess what? I had 2 jobs within 2 days. Does that surprise you?
Not at all. There's absolutely no surprise to it whatsoever. I'm emailed weekly about redundancies, and it's really frustrating because no one's approaching it in a humane way. You are vulnerable, you said that before, and I can hold my own in the confidence stakes, but I was shattered. I was absolutely shattered, and going through the legal process was really difficult and damaging. I mean, I was still breastfeeding, and I was not of sane mind. I was really nervous, and I was wondering what next. I mean, we'd burnt through all our money because I thought I was returning to work. We thought that my husband would be able to take paternity leave, and that would have helped our family life immensely because he'd understand what it's like to be a full-time carer. And all of that was taken away from us in one foul swoop. So,
what's your advice to women watching this who are, you know, from anything from considering becoming pregnant to being on, being pregnant in the workplace to being right now on maternity leave and looking towards coming back?
I think the most important thing is to try and keep some skin in the game. So use your 1 contact day per month and really nut out what you want. I mean, there's hours where you're up all night with a baby, and it's a great opportunity to decide if that employer is actually right for you too. So we need to change the conversation. If you are discriminated against, or if you do lose your job or made redundant, sometimes it is up to the employer and they need to change their structure. That's fine. But I think it's really important that you stand up for yourself. You consider legal action, and it's hard. It's really hard, but you need to do it for you need to do it for your children, and you need to do it for every other mum that doesn't deserve to be in that position.
Rhonda, I read in the paper when I was on maternity leave that my job was being taken by someone else, and I made the decision to come into work and confront my boss at the time. Obviously, though, not everyone has the confidence or the means to do that. So what would be your advice in that situation where you feel vulnerable and you're not sure whether your job's going to be there?
I think it's the vulnerability of your situation, also your financial situation, as Kylie just said. A lot of people, when the woman said about the career, it's a job. It's the way you pay your mortgage and you're legally entitled to it. So it's fairly straightforward. The other thing to remember is it's not just women. So we had 10% of our respondents were men, and the stats were the same. So as people go on paternity leave, the same thing will happen. And my advice is get in really early. Before you get pregnant, have the conversations, tell people that you're watching, and make sure you've got a good company and a good boss, which means they're trained to manage a fairly flexible workforce. And if you can do that in advance, you're in a much better position than trying to battle it when you're feeling destroyed.
I also think you need to focus on yourself. Like, it's really important to manage it yourself, manage your mat leave, and just keep having intelligent conversations. Get yourself out there so that you're doing something for you on maternity leave instead of being completely focused on a baby, which I know is contrary, but I think if you keep an element of you, you're better versed to be able to return.
Yeah, but let's face it, the onus has also got to be on bosses and employers.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
If I could say that, rather than have one woman have to fight all the time,
precisely.
It's a society issue. It's thousands of people. So if companies could... I wrote a blog a year ago saying, "Dear CEO, stop sacking pregnant women." 311 people contacted me and said it happened to me, my sister, my wife.
Everyone's got a story. Rhonda, Kylie, we've run out of time, but thank you so much. Such a crucial issue,
welcome.
so thank you for bringing it to our attention.